What's up, guys? I'm Jason Hurt with Chariots for Hope. Welcome to Under the Hood podcast. We are so excited that you're joining us today, and I'm excited because we have an amazing guest. Not only is he a former recipient, but he's a personal friend, a family member. Drew, welcome, brother.
Thank you.
So we're going to go ahead and get right into your story because your story is powerful. It's encouraging. I know it's blessed me and many of our staff members at Chariots. And so I just wanted to start off by just giving us background. Like, where did you come from? Have you gone through before you got to Chariots? Just tell us your story.
So I grew up in a rougher part of North Omaha with my grandparents at first. And like my parents were around, but they weren't around. So they would come and go as they kind of pleased, you know what I mean? And my grandparents just raised us. They were Catholics, so we knew church, but we didn't know Jesus, I guess you could say. You know what I mean? So after living with them, it was for about 6 years, from kindergarten to sixth grade. So all of my elementary school was with my grandparents, and it was me, my sister, my brother, and my cousin. And then when we lived with my mom, or when I actually went over to my mom's house to stay the night one night when I was 12, and I just decided not to leave. I told her I wasn't going nowhere because, you know, that's all we wanted to do. I wanted to be with my parents. You know, we never quite understood why they didn't come get us, I guess.
Wow.
That was one of the hardest parts, was like, you know, they had a choice. So they just chose not to, you know, get a place and come get me, my brother, and my sister. So, you know, for a lot of years I held on to that. But when I finally did live with my mom, I stayed over off of like Fontana Boulevard area by Benson High School, and pretty rough area. I hung out with some guys that were pretty rough. You know, I think the one thing that you kind of get out of that is you think you're included or loved or like
a false sense of
security.
Security,
yeah. You know, but it's kind of everybody was out for themselves still. You know what I mean? During that time, it was a lot of fast money, cars, women, like a lot. And I was young, so a lot of the people we hung out with were older, you know, in their 20s. You know, they had nice cars and stuff, and we were the younger kids, but we hung out with them. So everything they had, we kind of
picking up bad habits. Yeah,
lots and lots of bad habits.
Right.
And then, so I thought about this the other day that, so I'm at 38 years old, I've really only lived with my mom from the time I was about 12 or 13 to the time I was 19, because they actually lost the house.
Oh, okay.
And at that point, it was like, well, you guys got to find somewhere to live. And so from 19 on, I was on my own.
You were on your own.
Yeah, like I still had family around.
Running the streets?
No, I mean, yeah, pretty much. I stayed with a girl, you know, whatever girl I was dating at the time. She had an apartment, and then just moved in with her, which is a bad idea in itself anyway. You know, and when I was a teenager, I had got on probation, and I remember that's when the drinking started, though. A lot of drinking, because I figured out, you know, that they didn't drug test for alcohol. They drug tested for weed, and I had failed a bunch in a row. I think it was like, I don't know, 11 or 12 in a row from probation. So they stuck me in this like after school program or something like that. And I figured out that, well, you could drink and they couldn't test for it. So
That's your choice. Drug of choice.
And then I met actually a woman there, or a girl, whatever. And I had my first daughter. I met her in the treatment center, though, and it was just a girl that I only talked to for a little while. You know, it's funny, my daughter calls herself the oops baby, but
the oops baby. So how old were you when you were in the treatment
I was only
center?
17.
So you were 17. Okay.
Yeah. So, but the drinking, I mean, the drinking was every day.
Was it?
Yeah, all day, every day. Like, it's just what I did. Find money, go drink. You know what I mean? And I had my daughter. I thought it would stop, but it really didn't, you know, because once my mom lost the house at 19, then it was, you know, I had to make it by any means. So,
So who were you staying with?
Just a girl I was dating
So it
at
was
the
just,
time.
okay.
Not even the mother of my child.
Gotcha.
You know what I mean? I was kind of, I'd be around Takia like on holidays. Like I was never not in her life, but I wasn't in her life either.
Okay.
You know what I mean? It wasn't an everyday thing. And then when I was living with this girl, I worked all the time, but I was always trying to make extra money. So it was a lot of selling stuff. You know what I mean?
Okay.
So pretty much whatever you could get.
Right.
You know?
Selling drugs. So you got
Yeah,
into selling drugs
lots of
around
drugs.
17?
Around 17.
Okay.
Yeah. And I mean, I really did it as like a side thing because I kept a job because I figured if you had a job, you still
Legit.
looked like you had legit money.
Right.
You know, I never got caught for doing the things I did, and maybe that was part of the downfall. Like,
Right.
I always wondered how people got caught because I don't know. I always said you were a stupid criminal then if you got caught. Like, what if you
Right,
get caught?
right.
Like doing dumb stuff, riding around in your Beats and your
Well, it's probably a
rims.
challenge to you as well. Like,
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, so school was easy. So I'd never like. So when I was in high school, the teachers used to ask me. I remember one of them, my American history teacher, asked me one day. She goes, "Well, how are you never here? You come in and you ace the test." I said, "Because it's easy." Like so, the school was never a
Came
challenge.
natural.
Yeah, and I think it got to the point where like I didn't even get congratulated for good grades anymore. It was just like a thing.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like,
Right.
of course you passed all your tests. Of course you got all A's. Like, it was just like nothing.
Sure.
So I think part of the reason the streets were appealing was because it got me attention.
Yeah.
You know, lots of attention.
Right.
You know, and not only from the friends and stuff and from the girls, but it was from my family. Although it was negative attention, you know,
still
why
attention.
are you doing this? Like, you know, my mom had to pay attention at that point, you know, and my dad, he'd come and go. Like, I didn't really have a relationship with my dad, and I tried when I got older, but
Right.
it's neither here nor there. You know,
Okay.
it didn't affect me, I don't think, one way or the other.
Right.
I mean, it was really my mom I was closest to, and I always wondered why she never came and got me.
Sure.
But yeah, 20s were, well, that was when Kia probably seen the most. So my oldest daughter, who's going to be 21 now this year, she's seen the most. Like, I think one of the hardest things I think about back in the day is what I exposed her to. You know, like when I mean exposed her, like parties and drinking and women and I used to have it to where like there'd be parties and stuff at my house every day because everybody came over to get drugs, right?
Right.
So whatever I had at the time, there was a lot of weed, I guess, because one thing was I drank, so I didn't smoke weed, but everybody smoked weed.
Right.
So it's like every gram was $1. You know, that's the way I looked at it.
Right,
You know,
right.
So again, my intelligence economically, I would just say, well,
made sense. I'm
why,
gonna make
why
it.
would I burn the money? You know what I mean? You know, it made more sense to spend $10 on a bottle and be drunk for 3 days than it did $10 to be high for 2 hours.
Right.
And which is what most other drugs do. So I was just like, well, I just sell the rest of the stuff. You
Right.
know what I mean?
Right. Sure.
But she would be at parties. I just remember when MySpace was a thing, and there's this picture that went around that where my daughter was maybe 5 or 6. I don't know. She was real young, but she's just holding all this money, and it was. She got paid just for people to come in my house. Like they would come by for me, but
Right.
they would have to pay her to come in the house. She was standing at the door, and she
Jeez.
just had tons of money. Like it was crazy.
Wow. And
Yeah.
so at this time, you had 2 kids?
No, still just the one.
Just the one. Okay.
Yeah, I only had the one. I had Kia super young, but again, me and her mom weren't together ever. We tried a little
Right.
bit, but it never really worked out, you know.
Right.
And then let's see, in my 20s, I started selling really bad when I got this house. Like I had quit my job because I was making so much money, and once I quit my job, I could solely provide it for myself just selling.
Just selling.
Just selling
So you got
drugs,
to the
yep.
point where you were working, but you quit, and now 100% of your income's coming through selling drugs.
Yep.
Okay.
I mean, it was really the drinking that got me to quit because I had to be somewhere, right?
Yeah.
Well, there was mornings I couldn't get up, you know, partying all night. So I just said, screw the job. I'm making enough money this way, you
Right.
know. And I ended up getting robbed actually a few times. But the worst time was the girl I was dating at the time. I had been dating for 2 years. And
Right.
I ended up getting this house. And she was the only one I had told where I hid all this money, like a lot of money.
Okay.
And she knew when and where I would be at all times, pretty much. Right?
Sure.
Well, I don't know what I did. I must have did something, whether it was cheating and she found out, or well, anyways, she sent people to my house that broke in when I wasn't there. And the only and I'm talking, my house was laid out when flat screens were new,
Right.
Xboxes, clothes, and they walked in, took the money, and they left.
Wow. Nothing
And
else.
Nothing else.
So they
and she just
obviously-
disappeared.
yeah.
And so at that point, I stopped actually selling. I didn't stop selling, but I stopped being around people. Like
Okay.
I cut everybody
kinda
out of the
isolated
house.
yourself?
Yep. Took everybody. Nobody could come around. You know, if I did sell anything, I sent
Just a
someone
trust issue?
else. Yeah.
Okay.
Because I had a lot of people. There was a few people I trusted really, but I would just send them to do all the work at this point, right? Well, I didn't want to do it anymore, and the only thing I could think was college. So I actually tried college for a few years, even.
Okay.
And again, all A's and honor rolls and stuff, and I don't know. I just got bored again.
Did you?
Yeah. I
And then
mean,
went back to the streets?
no, I met a woman. And that's
Okay.
where I met my ex. And this whole time, I guess, I always felt like I did okay in life, though.
Yeah.
Like, there was always a car, there was always some work, there was always money.
Yeah.
But I wasn't never happy, I don't think.
Right.
And when I met this girl, at this time, my sister and my brother had been married for, I don't know, years, right? To the same person they had been with since they were like 15, both of them. They all had like 4 or 5 kids. You know what I mean? And when I met this woman, she had 3, and I thought like God was just, here's my family. You know what I mean? So I actually quit college and just went to work. And
Okay.
Yeah, and so I started taking care of her and her family. And at that point, I mean, the whole thing was the drinking was always around, but I don't know. I always felt like I had a handle on it, but I really didn't.
Right.
Like you couldn't catch me without a bottle.
Right.
There were times where police.
So it
would
was a
like,
strong addiction that you had.
Oh, it was worse than strong. I mean, you wouldn't be able to tell if I was drinking.
Okay.
That's how much I drank.
Okay.
Like I could have a whole job or I'd go to school and be drunk. I used to do this college algebra drunk. My friend talks about it still to this day. Like,
Right.
how did you do? I was like, I don't know. It just, I don't know if I was trying to fit in. I don't think it was fit in. I think it was like, I feel like my brain moves 100 miles an hour a lot,
Right.
and it just has to slow down. That's what I used to feel all the time. Like just slow down, just slow down, just slow down. You know what I mean?
Right.
Or numb, trying to feel numb too. Like all the many things that were going on, I felt like I had to drink to feel. If
Okay.
that makes sense.
Yeah.
Like to feel sad, I had to be drunk. To feel mad, I had to be drunk. To feel happy, to feel love, I had to be drunk. You know, everything. Like to the point where it was almost needed.
Right.
You know.
Right.
And that's kind of what happened with my ex. She didn't really drink when I met her, or really do anything. She was a single mom, you know, raising 3 kids, and she seemed all right. I mean, she still had her issues, but when I came in, I thought like I felt needed. I guess you could say, right?
Yeah.
And she wanted to be around me. I wanted to be around her, and it just kind of like snowballed, and we ended up spending the next 12, 13 years together.
Wow.
Which I don't know. I could say like out of all the living on the streets, it was probably crazier being in this relationship
Was
than the
it?
streets ever were for me. Yeah.
Wow.
Oh, definitely. It got bad. When I met her, like I said, I quit college, you know, and I just started working, helping her with the kids.
So you went back working a legitimate job.
Completely legit.
Okay.
I was done with and I think I stopped selling the drugs, the college. I kept getting bored. Like you get to a point, or for me, I kept getting to a point where it felt like you peak.
Yeah.
You know, it's like something becomes just monotonous or so easy
Right.
that it's just like, what's the next thing?
Right.
Or what's the next thing that's harder? And again, I never enjoyed any of it. You know,
So the joy was gone.
Yeah,
You weren't happy.
There was no joy in anything, I feel like, for a long, long, long time, you know? And we did good for a while. We ended up, this is the woman I had 2 more kids with. So,
Okay.
so there's 6 altogether that
6
we're raising.
altogether.
I-
2 with her.
2 with her. And I didn't get 50-50 custody of my oldest daughter till she was 10.
Okay.
You know what I mean? So for a lot of the years, Takia was just kind of like in and out of my life.
Yeah.
You know, again, I was never completely out, but I always think like that's kind of what my dad did. You know, he'd come around for the holiday, then he'd be gone for months or
Right.
whatever. You know what I mean?
Right.
And when I think back about it, that's probably what really hurts is like the one thing I didn't want to do, I kind of did to her.
Yeah.
you know?
Right.
And that sucks like
Right.
a lot.
So you're in this relationship 12 years. It's a very toxic relationship,
Yeah.
but you're in it for 12 years, trying to get to the point where we were introduced to you. So were you in this relationship when we first met?
No.
Or kind
so,
of talk to us towards the end of that relationship, then what?
Well, the relationship got real crazy after my best friend died, and the drinking got heavier and heavier. Like I couldn't go to work without drinking at this
Okay.
point, right? And I think a lot of it was my fault as far as like we started becoming abusive, and so
Okay.
I started going to jail.
Mm,
And for 3 years in a row, I went to jail, and I went to a place called the God Mod, which is where you get to start looking at the Bible.
okay.
Right. So they give you these lessons, and there's 8 lessons, and each lesson just kind of like goes over a chapter or two. And so I did all of them. Like, it's a lot. It's
Right.
like 250 or something like that.
Right.
Well, anyways, when I got out of jail this last time in 2021, I went to the ministry recovery ministry.
Okay.
And there I got to study more, and everything.
Okay.
And that's where I met you guys. So,
Okay.
so when I was in the ministry, it was really cool because they were planting a church, and you guys were across the hall.
Yes, that's
Yeah,
right. I
yes.
remember that. And so when you're in this prison, or when you're in prison, there was a ministry called the God Squad.
God Mod.
God-
Well, that's what they called it. So technically, that's the name the jail people gave it, right?
Okay.
We gave it.
Okay.
The guys gave it God
Okay.
Mod, and not me personally, but guys who had been going there for years.
Right.
It's Good News Jail and Prison Ministry.
Okay.
And they have a whole mod at Douglas County, and
Yeah.
it's great. I mean, you basically go in there and you can
And you did that voluntarily.
voluntarily.
So you
yes.
were just drawn like, there's got to be more. I'm tired of this lifestyle.
Well, for me, the first time I went to jail at 19, my cousins were guards, COs there. My mom freaked out.
Right.
So they got me into that mod. And so that's how I knew about it when I got older.
Okay.
And so I'm like, well, I'm going to go there because for me, it was like easier. They got a little bit more freedom. They got a TV, they got videos, they got music. I'm like, yeah, I'm going to go do it.
Yeah.
But God kept calling me there. And so the first time I finished half the studies, I got out. The second time I finished the back half and got out. And then the last time I went, I got to do the whole thing all the way through. So I know God was telling me something.
Yes.
I mean, he's like, I'm it.
So
it.
now
I'm
when you're getting released, you have a desire, an authentic desire to pursue him. And so you get hooked up with this ministry and you start diving into the word even deeper.
further and further. And it was in jail though where I found God, when I found salvation, when I realized what it was.
Right.
And that was just simply knowing that I didn't need love from my parents. That yeah, it'd be great to have, and yeah, it's a good thing to have, but that's not the love you need.
Right.
You know what I mean? The love you need only comes from Christ.
Come
and
on.
once I figured that out, floodgates were open. So now my intelligence was peaked, right? So now when I got into the Word, there's no way to just be on top of it all, right? Like there's no like, oh, I'm bored with this, if that makes sense,
Oh, yeah.
right? So it kind of just holds me there.
Yeah.
And that's all it is. And so when
Well,
I
it
got
sounds like it's for the first time it's kept your attention because you got
Yes.
bored in school, you got bored on the streets, but now you've got this, you've got this newfound faith that's got life attached to it, and you can't get enough.
Right,
Yeah.
right, and that's what it is. So again, my thought process went, it's easy to have in jail.
Right.
That's what I thought. I'm like, okay, well, this is great, but what happens when I walk out of here? So when I walked out of there the last time, I couldn't go back to my ex Tasha's house. I couldn't go to my mom's because my kids got taken the last time I went to jail.
Okay.
And so I couldn't live there because they were state ward. So I was literally homeless. And the only thing I could think is like, where can I go that I can continue to study? And so Freeway was the only place that
Yeah.
I knew of because I got accepted to like other programs, right?
Okay.
There's other recovery programs. But they luckily bonded me out, and I went there and agreed to do 6 months.
Okay.
And that was the agreement. And, there was a lot of opportunities to start meeting other ministries there.
Yeah, yeah.
And, I had the opportunity to like lead worship and give sermon and all these things. So all this knowledge that I had acquired from studying the Bible, I was able to share and apply. So that was the biggest thing, is like application. Like, okay, God, this is great.
Yeah.
Like you've given me this mind and
Right.
these ability to soak up all this word. What do I do with it though? Like how
Right.
do you walk out of where you're at or leave everything behind and use it?
Yeah.
You know, so
That's what you
opened
were
up-
learning
Yeah.
at Freeway.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And they were showing me how to kind of use some of it, right? And so I went through the discipleship program, and the guy Randy Stamer, he was great. You know, because that was what he related to me on was he had been a long living Christian, so he had been using it. So it's like, great, give me some of this.
I
How do
want
I
that. Yeah.
apply this?
Yeah.
And while I was at Freeway, that's when I ran into you guys. So
And-
I
and-
volunteered to do the floors.
Yeah, so we were needing help,
Yeah.
volunteers, and so you're like,
Yeah.
"Hey, I can lay floor. I'll come
Yep.
and help you volunteer."
Yep.
And then you found out that we had the shop.
Yep.
You got some skills, obviously, behind and underneath the hood.
Nope.
And
Oh,
so,
yeah.
where were you at with your kiddos at that point?
At that point, with my kids, they were only able to visit me for 3 hours, I believe, 3 times a week.
Okay.
And that was rough because it was at a recovery center. So it was in one room at the Freeway house, and there was guys walking all around. You know what I mean? So it was very awkward. I only had a limited amount of time. I couldn't really do much because I'm stuck in here. I'm stuck in this recovery center, right?
Right.
And so that was the beauty of hearing about Chariots. Was
Yes.
like, I didn't go to Chariots thinking that there would be something. It just kind of happened. Like
Yeah.
I went over there literally just to do the floor.
Right.
And I know Michelle likes to talk about the fact that I had a bunch of teeth pulled that day.
Yeah.
And I was over there the next day. She's like, "You did what?" She's like, "You better stop." And that was like the day I met Michelle. But like that was part of it. Like she cared.
Yeah.
Like, why do you care why wouldn't you just want your floor done? Like,
Right.
the people I've dealt with throughout my life, they just want something from you. You know, Michelle was more concerned about me and my health than her floor getting done. And I'm like,
and
I'm
that
fine,
was
I'm
foreign to
fine.
you. Like,
Yeah,
that
I
just didn't
didn't-
make sense. Like,
Well,
what do you
I-
want? Like, there's a secret agenda here.
Exactly. That
Yeah.
and that's what I was thinking. Like,
Right.
okay, there's more to this or something. So it did pique my curiosity though. And oddly enough, I had seen a post from my niece you guys had helped.
No.
Is where I first seen Chariots. So you guys had gave my niece Alexis a car, and I was scrolling through Facebook and I seen it. I'm like,
Her
hey.
name's Alexis. We didn't give her Alexis.
No, right.
Not that we're
Exactly.
opposed to that, but
Right. But she had a picture on there of the shop, and I'm like, hey, are you at Waymaker Church? And she's like, what are you talking about? At Chariots? I was like, oh, is that the same place? And she's like, yeah, they're across. And so it's kind of how it snowballed. And then when I asked her, she said, yeah, they helped me with a car. I'm like, oh, sweet.
because at this point, so you're getting out, you're volunteering, you're finding out, man, there's some unconditional love coming from this ministry.
Absolutely.
I want more of that. But you also had a need. Like, you also had a transportation barrier.
Yeah, so at this point I was able to work, but without being able to get anywhere, I was kind of working where I could. So one of the guys was doing some drywall. I was like doing that once in a while, and then pretty much whatever I could do. You know what I mean? Oh yeah, you want to go to work with me? Sure, I'll get $100. You know, do
Right.
whatever labor. But
Right.
yeah, without having the ability to go anywhere, how do you just get a job?
Right.
You know what I mean? It's
Right.
tough. And I remember talking to the pastor, and he had mentioned that you guys, and he's like, well, why don't you just go ask Jason? Well, I had met you a little bit after that. I remember though, it was a Valentine's Day event.
Yeah.
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 I remember. And we won the little balloon thing or something, you know, but
Yeah, that
I just,
game.
I just remember kind of telling you my story, just like where I was at with my girls,
Right.
you know,
That's what drew me into you, right? Like, Drew.
yeah.
Is that, here you are, somebody's coming out, you're working hard, you're moving forward, you had a story, right? Street life, and then you're trying to get right, and then you get into this relationship that's toxic, and then you're going to jail, and then you're out, and then you're in, and then you come out and you're like, now I'm ready. Like, God's opening your eyes, you're making a transformation. You're pursuing him with everything that you got. You're facing a real life barrier in transportation. You're fighting. And this is the other thing at that time too, you're going full custody for your kids.
Full. Yep.
And so it's a single father in this city that's spread out, trying to go ahead and, get a good job and provide for their kids. Like, you're struggling as far as like, man, how do I do this? And so That's where I remember like talking to you and hearing your story and hearing what you're doing. And I'm like, man, we got to team up. Like we got to team
Absolutely.
up.
And it just so happened you guys had just got those 3 lifts.
Yes.
And
then to
I
find
told
out that
you,
you're mechanically
that
inclined.
I did a lot of, under the hood. And that was kind of like where my dad came in, was in and out. What he did teach me was like backyard mechanic, I guess you
Right.
would call it, and then I always worked on my own cars. But again, I think that was just one of those things I could do just by, I'd YouTube and just figure it out.
Right.
Like, but yeah, it worked out that I didn't need to go get certified or something, like,
Right.
some big degree or something.
Right.
And, yeah, and I was able to do the 1099 work where I was able to what I was learning was that the more I could offer to other people, God seemed to bless me. Like if I knew how to do so much,
Right.
but I never did it for anybody else.
Right.
I had only did it for me.
Right.
I'd only thought like, what can I get out of this?
Yeah.
Well, then I
It's
started
just
thinking,
selfish.
well, if I just start doing stuff for people, let's see what happens.
Yeah, that's right.
And that was kind of like when the truth was revealed to me was like this being selfless out of the love God had for you rather than looking for something, right? Like trying to get something out of what you had or whatever. And he's faithful. So
Yes.
like he comes along the way. He's like, don't worry about it. Don't
Right.
worry about it. Don't worry about it. I had
Well,
no
and
plan.
That's
you
what
know?
I felt when you came to us. Like, hearing your story, you never know. I mean, and again, you'll say this, but you're a hustler. When we met up, that's what I remember. My first impression was you've surrendered. You're ready to follow him. You don't have a secret agenda. You're not going after anything. You just want to serve. And that was refreshing. And we got to talk about, though, we got to talk about, so you're in the shop, you're with us now, you're serving, we've hired you, you're now have been accepted into our program.
Right.
So you're in our vehicle ownership program.
Right.
We're working hard to try to get you a reliable vehicle so that you can continue moving forward in your job, getting your kids back, which was a huge barrier. Like you needed a reliable car to make this work with your kids.
Absolutely.
And so talk a little bit about that as far as just the difficulty of pursuing that without transportation.
Well, I mean, first of all, was getting to work. Like, how do you work? You know what I mean? Like, I couldn't, even when I had first started working for you guys, I was still hitching a ride from a buddy who was
Right.
at the church.
Right.
You know what I mean? So it just so happened that even starting to work for you guys, that I was able to get there. You know what I mean? I mean, I could walk because it was around the corner from the recovery house.
Right.
But I mean, being able to do anything with my daughters was probably the hardest part, because I think the most difficult part for them was the fact of just coming to a recovery center and sitting down.
Yeah.
Like that was
Not
it.
going
You
anywhere.
know what I mean?
Yeah.
I mean, we'd have an event here at church once here in a while, but I
Right.
mean, pretty much we were stuck in this house.
Right.
With a bunch of grown men that they don't know.
Right.
Very awkward for 2 little girls. But I mean, the difficulty of even getting past the hurdle of like getting unsupervised visits was difficult, because how do they give me, because once they would take away the supervision, then I got to provide transportation.
Right.
I got to pick them up. I have to drop them off at certain time. Well, how do you do that if you don't have a car?
That's right.
You know what I mean? So yeah, joining the program was great. And the way you guys gave me a car was
So we got to talk about that. We got
hilarious.
to talk about that. So and just because, it's easy to do, like you're fun, you got thick skin, but you're in the program, you're in the shop, you're working.
Yeah.
And so we get this car, we find your car, you don't know it.
No.
Talk about that.
Well, the funny part is I had cleaned a lot of cars.
Right.
And I said that every car was my car. Ooh,
Right.
I'd really like this one, or
Yeah.
ooh, I'd really like that one. So I'm cleaning the one that you actually are going to give me.
Right.
But what I loved about it was that I'm detailing it with my buddy, and I'm like, I'm not going to say it this time, Alex. And Alex is like, say what? That it's your car? I
Right.
said, yeah, I'm not going to say it this time. But this is my car. I think this is my car. And I'm like, I'm just playing. It's
Right.
not yet. I know I'm probably down on the list or whatever.
Right.
And then I remember we were blessing the car. That's why I was cleaning it. And I went over to the office to get the bow. And I just remember Cassie hurrying up and grabbing her bag. And so I'm like, Cassie, you got to hurry. You got to go get the person.
Yeah.
So she like literally left in her car and everything.
Yeah.
Like, and
Yeah.
I was like,
You're in the garage.
So
We're all in the garage
Yeah.
waiting for this, our new
Everybody's
recipient.
around. And that was probably one of the best moments, was when she's like, I'm gonna knock on the door and just open the garage. And I open the garage and I'm looking around, and she's just smiling and pointing at me, and I'm
Everybody's
just looking
pointing
around
at
like,
you.
what's going on?
Yeah.
And everybody just started. Yeah, that was great.
That was awesome.
That was, yes. I will
So you
never
cleaned your
forget
own
that.
car. We surprised you and tricked
Yes.
you, but now you've got your car.
Yes.
Right? And so talk a little bit about now, life after the car?
So once I got the car, it kind of actually sped up the whole reunification process with my children, which was amazing because at first it was taking months just to get like an extra visit or an extra hour.
Yes.
Well, at this point, I was able to start like meeting them places.
Yes.
Like, and we were able to like go to the jump park, or I was able to go to their school event or whatever, right? But it even helped because I think the day I got the car, it wasn't but maybe 2 weeks later where I was able to start picking them up.
Yeah, wow.
And so so that car even got me moved into the first apartment I got. Like everything I had from the recovery center, which is half a room full of stuff,
Right.
fit in that vehicle to get over to my apartment.
Right.
You know,
Right.
and then me and my girls were able to get to and from school. I mean, any kind of, because the other thing was with the visits, I had to start doing doctor visits and dentists, right? Because in order for you to get your kids back, they got to make sure you can do these things.
Right.
So I was finally able to start doing these things.
Wow.
And that was the beauty of having the car. It just opened up the
Yes.
ability for me to just be a dad, you know what I mean?
And see, we
single
talk,
parent.
Andrew, that's so awesome because we talk about outcomes in this ministry and we see a lot of different outcomes, right? You know, and some people think like, oh, it's a car, but it's so much more than the car. Like we tell
Absolutely.
everybody, like we're not a car ministry, we're a transportation ministry, and our focus is removing transportation barriers. In yours, you needed a car, and the outcome and the impact for your specific story was the fact of reunification with your kids and being able to go ahead and do the things that you needed to do to get those kids back and provide for them.
Exactly.
That's huge.
Yep.
And so that's why it's just, you know, we resonate, and you don't see a lot of single dads fighting the way
No.
that you're fighting and that you have. And so I just, man, congratulations to that. You have absolutely blessed us with your story. This is, we have to talk just a little bit about this and we'll bring it home. So we not only tricked you in your first one, but what we love is that, and you did this, we've got a program, we continue to improve and build on it. But part of that is like the cars, the original entry level program that you got accepted into. It's a car, older car with higher mileage. Right. And so we tell you this thing's not going to last forever.
Right.
Use it as a jump start planning. All right. We go through classes. We talk about that. And so you did that. Like you got an amazing job. You went ahead and moved forward. You started planning and saving and doing all the things that you were supposed to do. And then we have another program called the matching program, which is kind of like a step up.
Right.
Where it's like, hey, cool, this car's done. Now I've saved some money. We're going to help match that. And so it's a great program that we offer a lot of our recipients. You're going for that. So here we are, like you've applied for that now, right?
Yes.
So just like 2 years later, your car's starting to kind of come down to an ending. And so it's like, hey, I've saved up some money. I'm ready for that upgrade because now I've got my kids. Right, I'm full-time dad, 100% custody. So we invite you to the gala.
Yes.
Right.
Yes,
so you got to
the
talk a little bit,
fundraiser.
man. So you got to talk a little bit about that.
Well, so I remember reaching out to you because I had saved up some money.
Yep.
My car, the other car still ran. And by the way, I was able to bless somebody else with that car, which was my aunt who had her car broken into and all messed up. And I'm like, well, hey, I got this car. So I was able to let her.
Oh, Drew.
And she's giving me a little bit of money for it, but nothing that she would have to go to a car.
Right.
So
So it's blessed, not just you, but
it blesses. It's still blessing.
Come on.
You know. But I remember approaching you because I saved up some money, and I knew that I was going to need a newer car. You know what I mean? So
right.
when I approached you, I was just like, whatever you can get, you know, I have X amount, and then you told me the matching program. I'm like, well, that's cool.
Yeah.
So I remember you calling me to ask if I was coming. No, actually, to volunteer. I was asked to volunteer first.
Yeah.
And I was like, yeah, that's cool. You know,
Yeah.
volunteer, I guess, you know, so as a door greeter or whatever. And then once I got on the volunteer list, I remember you reaching out and saying, hey, can we have lunch? I want to talk to you about maybe speaking and telling your story. And I'm like, yeah, that'll be cool. So I had this idea like, maybe. But then you said Megan was too. And Megan's the one that originally referred me to the program. So I'm
Right.
like, oh, well, that makes sense. Megan and me speaking back to back. That makes perfect sense. And you're like, okay, at the end of your speech, you're going to introduce Maria and just kind of go 1, 2, 3, point at the board. So you had me write this whole speech,
Right.
my whole testimony, and I'm up there.
You have to pour out your heart,
Yes.
which was great. I mean, it
Yeah.
was an amazing story. You did an amazing job.
And I'm going to introduce somebody, and I turn to the board, and it's got my name all over it. And oh yeah, that I don't know which one
So
was
two
better.
times, man, we surprised
2
you and tricked
times.
you.
But I don't know if that car was as clean because I didn't get to clean it.
Exactly. Right. But here's Drew, man. He's like, okay, what an honor to be able to announce the next new family member. Everybody come along, join along, and help me introduce the next family member. 1, 2, 3, congratulations. And then your name pops up.
Yes.
So we love having fun with you. You don't know when the next surprise is coming. So
Right. And I tell you what, though, that's the other big thing. So God works everything for the good. And that video, I had so many people from my past life reach out to me. Wow. And I mean, guys I used to deal and run around with saying, I'm so tired of drinking. I had that barbecue, and one of my friends I hadn't seen in a long time came with another one who's just sober, and they just want to know how.
Wow.
And that, I think, is the best part.
That's powerful.
Yeah, and these aren't people that like you would expect. You know what I mean? And maybe that's part of God's purpose for me, is to reach those people that you don't expect.
Man, come on.
You know, so, and Chariots has just been a catalyst to get me there, because I don't. You know, I'm not a Facebook person. I'm not a digital guy that's always Snapchatting selfies, right?
Right.
But the times I've been put on there have brought more people to me than me just walking around.
That's
you know
right.
what I mean?
That's
and
powerful.
So I think that's probably the best part of all of it.
Well, I know this, brother. You forever will be in our hearts. You're a family. You're a brother in Christ. We love you. Your story inspires us. It still does. We've got a relationship now that nobody can separate, right? With all of the Chariots family.
Right.
You're coming back now, watching our kids. You're still volunteering. You're super engaged. You're still blessing our ministry.
Yes.
And so I just want to say thank you. I mean, this is what it's about. You had a rough life on the streets. You had a rough home life. God opened up your eyes. You went 150% towards him, pursued him. He's blessed you. You had this crazy barrier in front of you. That's where we stepped in and were able to help that.
Absolutely.
And now you're an amazing dad to your kids. And just congrats, man. It's an honor sitting here with you and,
Thank you.
and talking and just sharing your story, brother, and your heart.
I definitely appreciate everything you guys do. Everything. And you know, like I said, I know what love feels like now, so
come on,
appreciate
brother.
it.
Amen. Right back. Hey, we do too. So it's iron sharpens iron.
Right.
Well, thank you so much. We are excited that you're here and spent some time with us. And until next time, brother, we appreciate you. Love you.
All right.
Thanks for checking out the Chariots for Hope Under the Hood podcast. If you are inspired by this story and would like to know ways that you can make an impact in the lives of those trying to overcome transportation barriers, we can't encourage you enough to check out our website at chariotsforhope.org or follow us on social media for daily updates. Thanks again for listening, and God bless you.